This Rev 3 Games preview is brought to you by Netflix. It is my great pleasure to introduce Ryan Kaufman and Nick Herman from Telltale Games here to talk about The Wolf Among Us. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man.
Being here. Yeah.
So, for those that are not familiar with the, I would say, well-established comic book fables, give some sort of context to what The Wolf Among Us is about and how it fits into all that lore.
Wolf Among Us is a game set in this hidden community in New York City, and the idea is that the fairy tales and folk tales and fables that you know have all fled their homeland, wherever it is they live, and come to our world. And they're hiding out among us. They have to keep it secret, and you know, you play as Big B Wolf, the big bad wolf, the former villain, and he's now the sheriff of Fabletown. So he's been tasked with taking care of all these, you know, these fairies and folk tales and all this stuff, and making sure they don't kill each other.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that the really cool thing with our story is we take place before the comics. So we're a prequel. You know, it's sort of set in this old, you know, pre-Giuliani era of New York City, and we get to play with how Big B became this sheriff, like the protector of all these guys. I mean, he came from being the bad guy. Everyone's afraid of him. No one really likes him.
Mr. Toad? Oh, shit. Big B!
We know where the comics start, and we get to let the player explore how he gets there, and it's pretty fun.
So it's a good you know, jumping in point for somebody who's not really familiar with the comics. You don't have to know a lot, but it's also a great little detail for people who are really familiar with the comics to see how did that all come to the first trade.
And be a part of it too.
Yeah.
So Wolf Among Us is definitely in the wake of, you know, as you guys deserve, the well-received and wonderful Walking Dead. It's obviously as narrative focused with the branching choice, but sort of what have you guys learned from the experience of Walking Dead that you're going to sort of tweak or adjust or also, you know, maintain from that series into Wolf Among Us?
One thing that we definitely tweaked was the fighting system. So, you know, Lee as a character was much more reactive to, oh my God, there's a zombie on me, get him off. But Big B as a character he's physically powerful, he's a badass. So we wanted the fighting system to reflect something where players had more control over that, where you want to drive the fight, how you want it to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think in our action sequences, I think it was a focus from the beginning to, you know, Walking Dead was very linear. These scenes were very sort of do these things to get through, and we wanted to play with the idea that the player still has control of the story, and you're still a storyteller in these action sequences. You get to take the fight where you want it to, or in the demo you played, you can sort of throw them into the couch or throw them into the sink, and it's a goofy thing, but people read into those choices when they make a decision. It's I threw them into the couch because it's got some cushion, you know, like like they're trying to be the nice Big B, and that's another thing too that's cool about the character is he's got this sort of breadth. Like you can be the sarcastic jerk cop, or you can, you know, try to turn over a new leaf because everyone sort of expects you to be the bad guy, and that's a big thing with him.
Yeah, I'm about 2 seconds away from kicking a hole in you.
There's no need for that.
Yeah.
One of the things that was quite striking when I was playing this, and this was a section of game that would be the beginning of the first episode of Wolf Among Us, is that sense of you affecting the narrative was right there from the get-go, and it happened with a much greater frequency than definitely the beginning of Walking Dead, or I think any given moment, except for maybe the biggest high action points in The Walking Dead. Are you guys trying to do that, you know, on purpose?
Yeah, I think that we learned a lot about how to get players invested in the game from Walking Dead, which was a cool slow burn beginning, and discovering who Lee was and the mystery of who Lee might be felt right there. And the lessons we learned plus the character of Big B, it felt right to say, like, let's start off with a bang and get people in right away and feeling it.
Yeah, and I think too, we sort of learned, you know, Walking Dead was the first title with this sort of like heavy choice mechanic and this timed dialogue, and we were doing so much at first that we maybe didn't even understand ourselves until it got into the public and we got some feedback. And I think once episode 2 of Walking Dead came out, we realized how much people read into every decision they make, every dialogue choice. If this person's in the room versus, you know, if they're not in the room, like it all matters. And so I think a big focus for us on this was just give people more control, more tiny choices. Like it just people love it. So it's and we love it. It's just fun to make. It's
And it takes place in an alternate 1980s New York City. That's quite a contrast to the dwindling world of The Walking Dead. There are certain benefits to the apocalypse that you don't have to write as many characters.
Right. Yeah.
So are there some interesting challenges and opportunities that you can have such a more sort of populated and alive world, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, our writer isn't here, but Pierre was always complaining because in Walking Dead, it's just the same people locked in different rooms, right? You're just going from taking the same crew and moving around, and this is just all these different characters, and you gotta we still need you to care about all these people, even though you don't spend as much time. So I know that was definitely a challenge for him, but I mean, it took us a while to just figure out what this franchise needed, and yeah.
One of the first things that Nick and Dennis put together was a sequence, the opening sequence of the game, where you're sort of moving through the cityscape and there's that moody music. And having New York as a character really was a great thing. It just gives the whole game, it's just the vibe of noir, like dark, gritty. If you're coming into it thinking, fairy tales, folk tales, I don't know. I think the opening moments as you move through New York City, it totally
it's the South Bronx.
That
wasn't where I expected it to begin. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's with this franchise in general. I think the thing that excites me the most is, sure, it's fairy tale characters, and when you say that, people kind of roll their eyes. But it's like fairy tale characters. Like, they aren't the Disney versions, right?
No,
I mean, even The Little Mermaid.
They're horrible people.
That's a horrible story. That's a terrible story.
Yeah.
It's gut-wrenching at the end of the actual Little Mermaid.
Yeah, she just turns into sea foam and just disappears and goes, huh? But we get to sort of, the arc of fairy tales has been like, oh, let's make it more friendly, and we're bringing it back down and keeping it dark. And with these vibrant colors, it's just this nice contrast with this dark, gritty world and this beautiful art.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things that I think is also immediately striking, despite being in the less than savory section of the Bronx, but all the colors that are on screen. It shares the aesthetic style of The Walking Dead, but in terms of the color palette, it really, it's like this is not the same kind of dire situation that we are accustomed to with The Walking Dead. And I'm wondering how much you felt the need to really kind of get out of the shadow of your most recent accomplishment to really say this is something quite different.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you even put the art side by side, Walking Dead and Fables, you'll notice it's very different. It's not just more color. The art team spent so much time getting the ink lines right. I mean, there's some amazing tech with like shadows, reversing the detail maps, which make it look like a comic book would be drawn. And I think we also just wanted to push it as far as we can. Sort of in every aspect away from The Walking Dead. I mean, keeping its core of what the game's about and what we care about, but like the art, the music, like the tone, the types of people you meet, like it's all pushed as far as we can just to be different.
Well, and one thing that is also maintained, and it struck me that I think it happened 2 or 3 times just in the short piece that I played, reminding the player at certain moments that decisions you made will come back. I find that to be remarkably effective. That it's just that moment of I can't. There's no take backs at this moment. Right. I don't know what the consequences are. I'm curious what the thinking was to institute that in the first place, and if I can see the case could be made not to incorporate something like that. But.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because in Walking Dead, when we introduced it pretty late. And I was totally against it. Like I was so not into the idea. I was just like, it's goofy. Like let's have a feature so we can turn it off. And you can if you don't like it, turn it off in the settings. But now that I've been playing our games with it on, I can't turn it off. Like people, it helps you so much realize like, oh, everything you do, everyone's paying attention. Like we're not going to forget it. Yeah. And we have access to all your information, so we know exactly what you did and what you said at this point. So in episode 2. We can call back and make you feel bad or, whatever. Where action happens in it is button prompts that are up on the screen. But you guys seem to have gone to kind of make it a little bit more demonstrative of what's happening. You're trying to get the circle in the circle and then get the trigger, and you can tell when it's going to be hard to accomplish. I mean, how much do you work on that it doesn't feel like just kind of a rudimentary QuickTime event, but then something that isn't so challenging as to alienate a lot of the more casual players that would come to a game like this?
Yeah, a lot. Nick and Dennis put a lot of thought into the motion on the screen and how that might be represented by a similar kind of button input so that you felt like the experience was, you know, kind of an organic whole.
I think we're always learning from games we make and the mistakes we make, and even Walking Dead stole from Jurassic Park, and we're stealing from both of them. I mean, Walking Dead was more reticle selection, and we're sort of combining the two, and I mean, we're always learning from stuff we're working on. So. Yeah.
So one of the most fascinating aspects of The Walking Dead is it really caused a lot of discussion, is because it yet again broadened what seems to fall under this increasingly unstable name called video games. And that, you know, there were camps that say, well, is it a game because does it offer and you know, some type of challenge? I'm curious to hear your thoughts about, you know, do you see what you guys make, especially in the case of Wolf Among Us, as something that sits right alongside Halo, or you know, do you see it as something altogether different?
Yeah, I don't get it. I play Tetris, I play Halo. Those are both games to me. You know, it's like if it's entertaining and it's sort of got that player feedback and I have agency over it, I'm fine. It's a game, great.
Yeah, you know, one way I think we try to approach challenge as far as our games are concerned. You know, I was talking to someone at work and they were like, "Oh, I was watching people play the demo and it seems like it's really easy. Like it looks really easy." And I was like, "Okay." But the people, if it's easy, it just means they're taking a long time to do it. So for them, they're constantly engaged, right? They're not like, it's not like, wow, this is taking forever. It's no, this is as much time as I need to complete this. So it's not about being challenging. It's just about being like a rewarding experience, like making the player feel like what they're doing matters and is fun, and we don't really care about fail.
Do you feel that there has to, I mean, I think there's an argument to be made. Does there have to be challenge to be entertained? I mean, this is the only medium that seems to actually work under that assumption where, you know, if a book gets that much harder to read, most people just won't finish it.
Right. Well, I think the challenge in our games is just the choices and deciding how you want to play it. Like that's it for us. That's what the core of the game is.
And in many ways, that's more reflective of life than challenge of many other games that are out there.
And also as episodic games, we like people to come back. And like you say, if you stop reading the book halfway through because it got too hard, you don't get to enjoy the whole narrative. And we really feel like we want people to enjoy the narrative. We want people to be really engaged in it. And if it gets too hard and you stop, then there's a break there.
Well, Wolf Among Us, the first chapter is quickly approaching. It'll be available on Xbox 360, PS3, and the PC.
Mac.
All right, and the Mac as well. Well, I cannot wait.
I hope so.
Sure, we just invented that.
Where's the marketing team?
Everything.
Yeah, okay, we're good.
Guys, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
I really am excited.
Cool,
Thank
thanks,
you.
man.
Let's take a moment and thank our sponsor, Netflix. Netflix lets you stream your favorite movies and shows straight to your home without having to deal with one of those pesky cable companies. As long as you have an internet connection and a Netflix-enabled device, you're good to go. You can support Rev3 games and sign up for a free trial membership by heading to netflix.com/Rev3games.